So I'm going to be planting some potatoes today. It's a strain called Rocket, which are a first early, usually the first to harvest, delicious potatoes, and we're going to grow them in 4 different substrates. A lot of people are starting to try and use less and less peat in their compost, so we've got a mixture of substrate here. We've got cocoa peat, which is just cocoa, blended, nice, lovely and fine texture, 0 feed value in that, no nutrient whatsoever. And we've got this ultimate soil, which is predominantly peat. It's also got a little bit of cocoa in there, and it's also got some gambit, which is finely ground down pieces of cork, which is a sustainable product, and it helps hold nutrient, it helps hold moisture in the substrate. Then moving on, we've got a general multi-purpose compost, which is just something I picked up in a garage down the road. It looks to be reasonable quality, it's already got all the fertiliser needed in there. And then we've got the ultimate cocoa of cork. Again, no feed value, no peat whatsoever in that, just a blend of cocoa and the gambit cork in that as well. So we've got a mixture. We've got a couple that have got the feed in, we've got a couple that have got no feed at all in there, and similarly we've got a couple with absolutely no peat in there whatsoever and a couple that have. So we'll have a look at what's in the bags, see what the difference is in the texture, and then we'll look at how we're going to get these planted and how we're going to go about feeding them and see how they progress through the trial. So we'll start off with this cocoa peat, which is just lovely and soft, basically no lumps of anything in it. It's just a lovely soft mix. You know the roots are going to love that. Moving on to the soil, the ultimate soil. It's nowhere near as fine. There's a lot more fibrous matter in there. You can also see the little bits of gambit, tiny little specks in there, but little bits of cork which will help hold the nutrient, help hold the moisture. We move on to the general multi-purpose. This is quite nice feeling, reasonably fine. We've got the odd bit of twig or whatever in there. Obviously this is made up in some part with green waste compost as well as peat. And then we've got this ultimate cocoa, which is really light, really lightweight. You can see the bits of gambit in that quite clearly. Yeah, that you just can tell by the feel of it that roots will love growing in that. So when you're using a cocoa based product, something or a substrate that hasn't got any feed in it whatsoever, there are 2 ways you can go about getting that feed to your plants. So you can either add all of your dried feed, in which case I'll be using some blood fish and bone and some chicken manure pellets, and I'll be using that in the tub with this cocoa peat. So you add all your dry feed before you plant, and then you just feed water. You just water after that. And then the other way of doing it is by introducing your feed via every time you water. So that's what we're going to be doing with this ultimate cocoa. Initially, when we're putting potatoes in pots, there are no roots, so there's not really anything immediately that needs to be fed. So we're going to plant all the potatoes, and then as soon as we start seeing some growth, then we'll start introducing the liquid feed, which we'll come on to later when we do see some results. But for now, we'll start filling the pots. 50 litres per pot. I'm going to put 4 potatoes in each one, and I'm going to put about 3 or 4 handfuls of this blood fish and bone, maybe a handful, 3 handfuls of this, and a handful of the chicken manure pellets in the pot containing the cocoa peat, and everything else will just be getting the compost that comes straight out the bag. So we'll get on with planting them. So when I mix this fertiliser in, I'm going to put half the bag in to start with, and I'll add half the feed that I'm going to put in there. So that's a couple handfuls of this, blood, fish and bones. Give that a bit of a mix. Get your hands in there. Mix around. And we'll add the rest. And pellets. 2 more handfuls of this. And that'll be all the feed that this pot gets until the finish of the trial. Again, give it a good mix. The potatoes are what they call gross feeder, so they need a lot of feed in order to get the best from them. And just break up any bigger lumps that are in there. Sometimes where they've been stacked you can get quite a lot of big lumps in the compost. This one isn't actually too bad. There's our ultimate soil. Onto our multi-purpose. This actually says 60 litres on the bag, so try and keep it even. It says 60 on the bag, but they're 50 litre pots. That's not filled, so again, break up any lumps. There is quite a few twigs and bits of stick and stuff in there. We'll leave all of that in. So that's our pots filled. Now we're going to get the potatoes. So we're going to put four potatoes in each pot. They're all similar sort of size. 4. So as I've said before, these shoots basically they don't want to be damaged at all. So in order to get them to the bottom of the pot without damaging them, I like to sort of claw my hand over them like that, and then I'll just burrow myself down to the bottom, near the bottom, and that's one. And move on to the next. I'll do exactly the same for each pot. So now we're going to give everything good water in, leave them outside in the sun for now. If it's going to get cold, we'll move them back into the polytunnel, and then we'll update as soon as we get any growth.